Okay, so moving on, we have mean and median, remember, are measures of center. We don't really include mode with that because the mode could be all over the place. Okay, so mean and median, remember that. The measure of center that outliers skewed affect the most is the mean. Okay, so if I've got, numbers way out in no man's land, it's really going to skew the average. It's going to mess up the average. Remember that problem with the amusement park, and you had all those wages, and then there was the manager's wage that was twice as much? That would be an outlier, and that messes up the average. Okay, so this is really important to remember. The most appropriate measure of center to use, when things are symmetric, the most appropriate measure of center to use is either the mean or the median, and we're going to say it's the mean. So the average is the best indicator. The most appropriate measure of spread, there's two different ones. There's the interquartile range and standard deviation. And for this one, it's the standard deviation. Okay, if my data is skewed, okay, either left or right, the most appropriate measure of center to use is the median. And the most appropriate measure of spread to use is the interquartile range, which we also call the IQR, the interquartile range. Okay, and that makes sense that we've got, instead of the standard deviation, we've got the more of a range that we're looking at. Okay, so this is stuff you're going to need to memorize. All right, finally, what we have is an example. The table shows the results that ask men and women how many pairs of shoes that they own. So there it was. This is the box plots. I can't put everything on the same slide, so you're still looking at your notes. Okay, it's obvious, according to this, that men own fewer pairs of shoes than women. So the men's distribution is skewed right. So if it's skewed right, if it's skewed left, if it's skewed at all, what is the best measure of center? Remember, it is the median. Okay, and the spread, the best way to find the spread is the interquartile range. So this is the median for the men is 7, and the interquartile range is going to be 10 minus 5, right? It's Q3 minus Q1, and so this is 5. Okay, now for the women look pretty symmetric. The box and whisker plots look pretty symmetric. So the best measure of center for something that's symmetric is the mean. And if we look over here, we see that the mean is 14. The measure of spread for symmetric data is the standard deviation. And according to our table, that is 4. So that is the information. So using that information, compare the number of shoes, who owned more, okay, which set had more variability, okay. We've got, well, it's obvious that the women owned more pairs of shoes than men, okay. The men it was a little skewed, so, but if you're talking about variability, look at how long this is, okay. It's a much wider range. So, which set had more variability? The women. Now this one, about how many of the women surveyed owned between 14 and 24 pairs of shoes? How many women? Okay, well we have a total of 40 women. That's also on your table, right up here. And remember that each one of these sections is 25% of the women, okay? So this is 25%, this is 25%. So I add those together, I get 50%. 50% of 40 women is half, 20 women. So half the women own between 14 and 24 pairs of shoes. All right, the homework for this one was also a worksheet. I've got that also included in Canvas, so try that out, and if you have any questions, let me know.